Okay, welcome back. Another day of racing, another 2 victories for Luna Rossa. They were looking incredible. And going to have a little chat to Rob. But first, I'd like to do a bit of a deep dive in what I saw as Luna Rossa's big edge today, and that was their tacking game. Often Luna Rossa were closing the gap a little bit upwind, but Luna Rossa just had slightly nicer tacks, and they were pulling out meters each time the boats tacked, forcing Ineos into more manoeuvres. And there's some very subtle but very interesting differences in how Luna Rossa are attacking. So we'll have a look at that, and then we'll jump in with Rob and have a bit of a discussion about the state of play after this first weekend of the Prada Cup final. So here we are on the first upwind, just come off the start line on port. And you'll see Ineos is slowly closing the gauge on Luna Rossa, suggesting a slight advantage in a straight line. They go for a tack though, and it was about 50 metres before the tack, but by the time they come out the other side, the advantage has gone up to almost 70 metres, or just over 70 metres. So Luna Rossa gaining kind of 20 metres in that tack. Okay, now here is the next tack, same race again. So going along on starboard towards the port boundary, Ineos have closed the gap down from 70 metres to about 60, and they go for this tack again, so distance about 60 metres between them. Obviously closes up a bit during the tack, but then if you look what happens, Luna Rossa gain about 15 metres in that tack. So I've synced these 2 tacks to the foil drops, not in time but in foil drops. Both foils drop. How do the tacks look? We go through, and the first thing we notice is Luna Rossa does this kind of like little foil raise on the new tack, but actually Ineos gets the foil out the water first. So Luna Rossa are doing something quite different on the exit of their tacks. So again, these tacks are the same tack, same part of the course, same wind strength. I've synced them up to the foil drop. And the first thing I want you to notice here is Luna Rossa are a little bit more eased, but then both boats do go for the big sheet on to initiate the turn. And again, on the exit of the tack, we see the same thing again. Luna Rossa just lifting the foil partially on the windward side to get the tip out of the water, but it's a partial raise. So they're definitely doing something different with the way the foil. Ineos's foil just rockets out the water, and in only a few frames time has overtaken Luna Rossa's foil on the raise on the new side. So something really different there, and possibly Luna Rossa leaving that edge of the foil in for a bit more stability on the exit of the tack and a slower build. Okay, here, so I've used the analytics from the America's Cup Virtual Eye, and the graph on the bottom, the yellow line, is the Luna Rossa starboard foil. And what you'll see is when they drop the foil, it goes down quite deep initially, deeper than Ineos's does, and then it slowly raises up to just over 60 degrees. So it drops down to about 59, so a lower, less extreme cant angle, and then slowly comes back up after the tack. And it's after the tack where we see Luna Rossa make these gains. So why could that be paying? Well, if they drop the foil further down, that means it's giving them more lift but less righty moment. So it possibly means they're having to use less flap on the foil to get the same amount of lift. And if they're not using all that righty moment immediately after the tack, whilst the sails are kind of reattaching flow, then that could explain the kind of 10 to 15 metres gain we're seeing from Luna Rossa on these speed builds out to the tacks.
He is the whole team is built around him, and it was Ben Ainslie Racing. It effectively is still Ben Ainslie Racing, and he's in all the press. You feel like he's taking so much weight on his shoulders, and everyone goes, yeah, but he's won all this stuff and he's won the America's Cup. When he won the America's Cup with Oracle, he was effectively a passenger on a winning machine. If you're going to be really critical of it, you would say they would have won with or without Ben. And if you were less critical, you might say he was fairly pivotal, but all the pressure was on Spittel in that cup. When Ben's won his 5 Olympic gold medals, they're all in single-handed classes, so all the pressure that he puts on himself is purely on himself. If he lets anyone down, it's him. With this, I can't help but feel that he must feel a huge amount of responsibility for the success or failure of the project as a whole, and that's got to weigh on your shoulders.
I do sense in that first pre-start today it was a bit of pressure, and it was Ben trying to force a manoeuvre, and this is something we've maybe criticised Luna Rossa for doing before, forcing a manoeuvre, going for a hook when it's not on. And Giles gives him plenty of warning in the pre-start. Giles' communication is actually just excellent. You couldn't hope for anything better. The amount of detail about where they are in that box, where the ley lines are, everything is just 100% perfect from Giles, really. But Ben's call is a bit out of desperation to go for that hook when they're 4 seconds from racing.
Your wheel. Ley lines 10 away. My pitch. Staying on his hammer here. Yep. Okay. Straight on. Board out. Okay, going board. My pitch. Your pitch. Yep. Go killers, boys. Going for the hook here. Yep. Straight on. Killing 10. Killing 4 at the pin. My pitch, your pitch. Up hard. Yep. Straight on. Okay, back down. Easy. Got you racing. Yep. Straight on. All the way up, board out. Okay, going board. Yeah, mate.
I think with about a minute to go, Giles is calling kind of 10 to kill. Well, if you've got to kill 10 seconds in 60, that's quite an easy kill on the lead back. So I think to be going in for the hook in that situation is very high risk.
Today, Ineos looked quick, so you think maybe there wasn't the same need to be as aggressive in the pre-start when you're on a level boat. If they could have just taken a level start, and in the end they get a worse start, and by the first tack they're almost in touch, and I'll cover this separately about the tacking losses. But you just kind of think if Ineos had settled for a more conservative start there, they would have been in a pretty good situation to get ahead and maintain a lead, and that never happened. I think that is pressure on Ben.
And Luna Rossa have become confident in their boat handling, so they're happy to just match and force their opponent to the short boundary. So in that situation, you've got to be a lot faster to overtake as the following boat. A small speed edge is never going to allow you to sail around your opponent. So Luna Rossa did a good job, but to be honest, it was pretty easy for Luna Rossa. There weren't any massive shifts. There wasn't a massive pressure gradient across the course. They just keep the leverage small, have confidence in their boat handling, and effectively just create an object in front of Ineos, and they effectively throw the gauntlet down and say, sail round us if you can, and we're not going to make a mistake. But
I think what we saw from Luna Rossa was a boat that now understands its strengths. They knew exactly where to engage and where to hold off, and they played those races perfectly to their strengths in what some would consider to be Ineos's favourite conditions. And we did see some examples of Ineos being quicker in a straight line, but Luna Rossa managed that to perfection. You've got to say that was good match racing by Luna Rossa more than it was an error from Ineos afterwards.
I think what Luna Rossa did really well on the beats was they obviously sent Ineos towards the short boundary, and then they matched tacks sailing up that boundary. But then when it became time to split away and go to the top mark, they were often able to force Ineos to do 2 more tacks, and then Luna Rossa would just sail to the ley line, minimise their manoeuvres. So yeah, we think they were gaining a little bit each tack. But then if you can make your opponent do 2 more tacks, that's just a free 50 metres in the bank, and then they're going to struggle to make that back.
A few moments of tetchiness on the Ineos boat that we saw start yesterday, with Ben getting a little bit cranky at Giles and the duck. There's a few things like they went round the woman mark and did an early jibe, Blenheim crossed the boat during the jibe, and I think really there they needed to call a no-look jibe. There was no reason for Blenheim to be crossing during the jibe, and then Ben got a bit cranky about it afterwards, getting the speed on, whether they were going to go 2 boards down for longer, and the tone in the boat isn't fantastic a lot of the time.
I think when you're winning, it's very easy to have a happy boat, and the contrast on Luna Rossa is you see the guys sailing, they just seem like it's very relaxed. I mean, if I'm honest, I think their communication is no better than it's ever been, really.
Luna
Rossa. We did see one tack today where they were both on starboard. They were both on starboard, and they were going to face Ineos as they tacked at the boundary. And Bruni makes the call, "I'll count you in." And then Bruni does the countdown from the leeward side, including when to put the board down. They do the tack, and it's really good, position themselves really nicely. And when they come out of the tack, Jimmy goes, "Wow, that's so much better. That's really good." And you just think, how has it taken these guys until now to just realise the leeward helm who's looking at your opponent does the countdown? I mean, surely that just can't be a surprise to them. But at least they've figured that out now. So hopefully we'll see them tacking a little better when they're in the pressure situation.
Yeah, it's funny. I still listen to the Luna Rossa communications, and I don't think it's terribly organised. There was a lot of people kind of talking across and general chitter-chatter, but it's not always obvious who's making decisions. And Ineos, on the other hand, the communication about the boat was really good, but they just messed up the two pre-starts. Doesn't matter how good communication is if you just then do the wrong thing.
Ineos are the complete opposite of this. Ineos are very regimented in their communication. No one can say anything without saying copy at the end of it, which I think would probably drive me mad eventually. I know it is good, and you do get recognition that someone's heard your request. But wouldn't it drive you mental eventually?
It would. You can imagine the dinner table. Pass the salt, Blethyn. Copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did see in the pre-start Ben scrabbling to try and cross the boat, and again I think sometimes Ineos could just stay on the side they're on for a little bit longer. He was trapped underneath the boom, and again, does he really have to be crossing in that moment? Can't he just let Giles steer for a few seconds and then cross once the boat settled? But maybe a bit of his trust in Giles' steering has been diminished. You know, and that's the second time we've seen Ben get caught out trying to cross the boat in the pre-start. Of course, the last time it turned out okay because he won the race, but he was holding on to the back of the boom, a bit of indecisiveness. So there's definitely a chalk up a 1-0 for the twin helmsman versus the single helm. Yeah. I mean, I thought we saw Ineos basically find new ways to lose pre-starts today. First one, all the team were doing their best to keep Ben in the proper spot, and he just made the wrong judgment call. Second one, Ben had got them into the perfect spot, and then the crew let down on the execution. That foil raise, I think that's what they've attributed to it. The foil had a bit of suction on when it came out the water, and then once it let go, that heeled the boat to leeward. Also a bit of a sneaking tell that they are putting a little bit of downforce on those windward foils as well.
Yeah, I mean, we thought that the first time we saw it on the RAF day in the round robins, and
yeah,
I think you can get a little bit of downforce on there. It was.
What else
I mean,
do you think?
I think on the Ben irritation front, to me, you could tell before the first race yesterday he's tense. Just the process of them getting towed up onto the foil by the chase boat, it just irritated him. It felt like inside he was thinking, what are these idiots doing? Can't they see we've got to get up on the foil here and get down to the race course? There's 4 minutes to start and we're turning onto the foil. Like, stop faffing around. Like, sort it out. So we're 4 minutes out, he was already a bit annoyed with the guys on the chase boat. And to be honest, they're part of that team. They've got to get their eye in the game and realise that what they do 4 minutes out has an effect on the whole team. Whereas Luna Rossa just they towed up onto the foil, and it was just an easy process. No one even stressed about it. So you're just, it's such tight margins at this level that little things like that can really have an effect.
Yeah. No, there's a few examples of that. What do you think? Obviously now Ineos 4-0 down, Luna Rossa looking super strong. How do you see this series going?
Well, I mean, I called it at 7-4 Luna Rossa, and how did you call it? I think you called it 7-3 Ineos. So you're already out of the running. You're out of the running.
I'm already out of the running. Yeah.
And Ting Tong called it
7-5. I think
7-5. So he's nearly out of the running. I mean, it doesn't give me any joy to see Ineos performing like this. I think clearly they're going to be worried if they have to sail against Luna Rossa in these conditions. They'll be able to go away and look at the data and see that they actually had an upwind speed edge a lot of the time today. And I think if we'd seen even starts, Ineos would have had at least a 50-50 chance of winning those races. And whether they'd have won 2, who knows? But probably it could have been a 1-all day. So they've got to go away and take some kind of confidence from that and just realise, we're 4-0 down here, but we're not going to... It's not like a football match where in the 90th minute they're in extra time, they've got to chuck everyone forwards and take a massive risk. They're effectively at half time. They've just got to regroup.
Yeah, I think it is that. I think Ineos do deserve, looking at their boat speed and the package, they do deserve race wins in this series, and I'd be surprised if we don't see them win races. It is going to come together at some point. However, like you said, the boats are very evenly matched. For Ineos to go, whatever, they've got to go almost 7 races straight winning, haven't they? They can only afford a couple more drops. And you just think Luna Rossa are going to pick up a couple of races, 3 races on the route through. I think Luna Rossa, from their point of view, they'll just want to be careful not to let Ineos build any momentum. They can afford Ineos to win 1 race here, maybe 2 races, but I think if it gets more than that, Luna Rossa will be afraid of a full-scale swing in momentum. So I don't know. I think if we get an Ineos win the next 1 or 2 races, it could then get really interesting, because then the pressure is hugely on Luna Rossa to stop this kind of swing in momentum. But at the moment, they're super comfortable. They're just like, Ineos can win 1 race and it doesn't matter. We just need to make sure we go, punch for punch with them. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the content, you can subscribe just clicking on that bell. And I'll catch you, not now on Wednesday because there's no racing, but I'll catch you, fingers crossed, next weekend for a bit more of the Prada Cup final. Take care.